Right, here we are on the Unschooled podcast. I'd like to welcome Matt Noronha. Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much for joining us, Matt, and welcome to the Unschooled podcast.
Great to be here, Rob. And really excited.
Good. Very glad to get you on. So what I normally do is just allow people time to kind of introduce themselves and tell us a little bit about what they do. And at the end, Matt, I'll give you an opportunity to tell people how they can get in touch with you if they would like to do that.
Okay.
And full disclosure, I've been working with Matt as a coach over the last year, I would say. And Matt has just been leading a 3-month coaching process, which I've been part of, which has been amazing. Very glad to have you on, Matt. So can you tell everyone a little bit about yourself and what you do?
Yeah, absolutely. So thanks for the introduction, Rob. Really appreciate it. Matt WL Noronha, based here in Bedfordshire, originally from London, but moved out of the big smoke into nearly the countryside. We're in a town, but nearly the countryside. Primarily, I'm involved in coaching and training specifically around mindset and selling and business coaching for entrepreneurs in the empowerment space. Also very heavily involved in the crypto space and got a separate project there as well, do a lot of trading and stuff like that. So fairly busy and really enjoying life too.
Good, fantastic. Thank you for that. So we've talked about various elements of school in our conversations over the period of time that we've known each other, and you kind of know what my Unschooled coaching project is all about. So I couldn't really think of anyone better who I could ask this question to. So I'm going to call this particular podcast "The Lies of Schooling," and try and get us to think about what the lies of schooling might be. And what I mean by that is, what did you learn at school that you had to unlearn? So those the two main questions of Unschooled coaching are, what did you learn at school that you had to unlearn in order to be successful? And what didn't they teach you at school that you needed to learn in order to be successful?
Wow. Massive
Big questions. Yeah. So maybe if we start with, who you were at school and what your experience of school was.
Yeah, I suppose really, are we talking about secondary school?
You can start whatever you like.
Okay, because my experience of sort of junior primary school was very different to my experience of secondary school. So junior primary school, I had an amazing time. I remember, playing football all the time. I remember enjoying music lessons. I remember really being excited to get into school. Had a really fantastic time. Haven't got a clue what I learned.
It's funny that, isn't it?
Yeah, it is funny. But I remember it being really wonderful. And I remember, lots of good friends and a lot of good time. It changed when I went to secondary school. It was like, a real big change when I went to secondary school, and I started to not really enjoy it. And I started to really sort of feel that I was being excluded and kind of different, and kind of wasn't very conducive to doing very well or learning, and reaching my full potential. And I think the major reason for that was that when I arrived at secondary school, I think on the first day, it was a big secondary school in South London, I arrived there and I got into a slight altercation, which probably wasn't very significant. It's probably two boys, I think. They were in the queue to go into the games hall, and I think someone pushed someone. I fell over. I pushed back, and the archaic PE teacher, who was literally like a dinosaur in a Puma tracksuit.
We all had those, yeah.
He came out. Yeah, we did, right? He came out, and he's actually a nice guy, Mr. Berry. He came out right at the time where I was pushing this other kid, who dramatically fell on the floor and looked like he was collapsing. Okay, and so
one of those Italian footballers, right?
Yeah, it was exactly. It was just a really bad timing point for Noronha, actually, and it was a shame because I was the kid that turned up with his scientific calculator and his geometry set, and I really wanted to learn. Okay, and I just felt, again, it's my meaning and my kind of filter on the event that actually happened, I just kind of felt like from that moment, I was kind of criminalized, demonized, and made to look like a sort of the bad kid in 100. And what Mr. Berry did was grab me literally by the throat, dragged me into the, this was on the first day of school, dragged me into the changing rooms and beat me with a ping pong. And of course, even the cane in those days was legal, but Mr. Berry had come from the era where it wasn't illegal. So he beat me quite badly with a ping pong sort of bat. And it wasn't a great time.
Funny
and
that
of course,
on your first day.
Yeah, and once you get labelled as the bad kid, you know, being an 11-year-old, being quite vulnerable, being quite susceptible, you tend to start to believe it. So I then became the kid that was always called outside the classroom, standing outside the classroom. Any trouble in the school, they'd come and, where's Noronha? Of course, they couldn't pronounce my name properly. Noronha, where's Noronha? And I'd be standing outside. And so it wasn't very conducive to learning, which was a shame because I really wanted to learn and I really wanted to do very, very well. And I was really interested in learning and actually had a really good attitude towards the teacher. So I kind of felt, what's the word? I kind of felt incriminated from the beginning.
Right.
Which was a slippery slope. Okay. And I don't think I was the only one. There was a few of us.
Do you think that kids start to respond to those labels if they're given them early enough?
Yeah, 100%. Because, you know, at the end of the day, if you study psychology, you understand that young adults, adolescent children start to look outside the family and even the sort of extended family for role models. And especially with young boys, it's very important at sort of 11, 12, 13 that we have male role models outside of our immediate family.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so who are your first role models? Really, they're your teachers. Okay. And so for me to be sort of, you know, slighted on the first day, you know, something that really wasn't my fault. I was literally just pushing someone back who pushed me and the timing point was just bad. And to be then sort of beaten in front of all the rest of the boys quite ruthlessly just to be made a show of. Okay. It's quite embarrassing. You know, it was really painful and it was just a taste of what was to come. You know, I kind of literally didn't have any trust in those role models now. So it was a kind of them and us scenario, which never needed to be. And, you know, at the end of the day, I think, yeah, it definitely affected things moving forward. Absolutely.
I think maybe if your trust in authority is damaged at that early stage, it's going to be very, very difficult to rebuild that with almost any teacher.
Yeah, 100%. I did a lot better with the female teachers than the male teachers. And I think that, again, was kind of helpful in one way. But again, as a young adult, you really need to have role models of your own kind of gender to some extent.
Yes.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. Wow. Okay. So if I kind of go back to our sort of starting point, in a way, what school tries to do is to set up adult role models for you.
Yes.
Role models, male role models. And we may come into school as an 11-year-old quite reasonably having an expectation that these people will behave as role models.
Yeah.
And responsibly. And this teacher obviously didn't do that, didn't spend the time to investigate, made a snap decision, blah, 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 did something pretty horrendous. It's kind of logical that your faith and your trust in the system is just not going to be there going forward.
Yeah, exactly. Which is a great shame because, you know, I remember I was really looking forward to doing well, and it seemed to be. And again, you know, I take responsibility for a lot of it as well, because as human beings, as we all know, we add meaning, we generalize, we distort, we delete meaning of events. So I probably add a lot to it, but an 11-year-old kid would do, right? I mean, you know, you're going to add a lot of stuff to it, but yeah, absolutely. It you know, created a bit of a slippery slope, to be honest with you. Yeah.
Wow. So Okay, let's just focus. I mean, I know it's a little bit of a negative vibe at the moment. Obviously, we're gonna develop that. But in terms of lies, if you like, or things that you were told, or things that were implied to you through your education, maybe in terms of learning or social relationships, is there anything else you can think of?
Yeah, absolutely. I think from that incident onwards, it was all about, for me, my perception of school and the system and the structure and the institution. It was all about them and us, and them institutionalizing us to conform so we could be controlled. Now, I know that might sound really extreme, okay?
Not to me.
For me, well, I'm in good hands then, but for me, as an 11-year-old adolescent who was fairly vulnerable, that was my interpretation of what school became. And I didn't want to be controlled. I wasn't going to be controlled, okay?
Right.
So then it becomes this eternal fight between, the teachers and me, essentially, and a few other of the lads as well, which were kind of singled out. And it really seemed like they needed to have a bad group, or they needed to have a group of no-gooders to make an example out of the rest. And I just unfortunately fell into that literally by circumstance, which was a shame. But again, all things I believe work for good eventually if you choose to see it that way. Yes. And so again, I've drawn a lot of strength out of that as well, and really whole and complete about the whole experience now, and look at it actually with fond memories.
Right.
Believe it or not.
Right. Yeah. Okay. I suppose it could have led you to go one of two ways. It could have led you to internalize that view of yourself as someone who, because they weren't going to fit into the system, would become a victim of the system in whatever way. Or what often happens in my experience is that you choose to not become a victim of the system and therefore make your own system.
100%. And I think that's exactly what I did, is kind of make my own system, and really just kind of do my own thing and not really give a stuff about fitting in, which is what basically everyone else was doing. So yeah, absolutely.
So what kind of, I suppose this brings on to the next part of it, is what skills did you need to learn? If school was not a particularly positive experience for you, and you were determined to make a success of yourself, which you obviously have, what did you have to learn along the way? What were the major lessons that you learned that you didn't learn in school?
Well, here's the thing. I learned that at the end of the day, the only person that was truly backing me was me. And I learned that inside of me, I've got incredible resources and determination, but I will prove you wrong. So I'll give you an example, Rob. I was suspended, then expelled from school. I was allowed to go back and do my GCSEs. I think that's how they used to do it. And interestingly enough, I was the first year of GCSEs. And I remember several of the teachers, when I got expelled, they were literally kind of, sniggering at me, kind of thinking I wouldn't even turn up for my exams, and just looking at me like an absolute loser, as if I was going to fail everything. And they were expecting me to get use. Okay, great bit of confidence to win in the game of exams, right? I used that to actually say, I'm going to come back and I'm going to do well in my GCSEs, and I'm going to have the last laugh, and I'm going to smile at you. Okay. And so I think if it wasn't for that experience, I wouldn't have found that inner grit, that inner mental resilience, that inner sort of, I'm going to win, that kind of competitive edge. And in a way, it was very childish, very adolescent. I'm going to prove you wrong. But it was just, that's what happened. Okay. But I found out in myself that I had great powers to achieve whatever I wanted to achieve. And they gave it to me. So I'm actually really thankful to them. Yes. Really in a very genuine way.
Yeah.
Because that was the model of the world they were living in, right? They're in a different era. And I remember coming back, and I remember everybody was shocked. I had this new spiky hair and all that. Came back for my exams, okay? And, academically, you probably wouldn't be too impressed, right? But for someone that had hardly done much in school, had kind of been demonized, hadn't turned up for a lot of his lessons, and bunked off a lot, taken a lot of time off, got expelled, got suspended, etc. I actually got 7 GCSEs on the first run. And they were mainly B's and C's. And the reason I got those is because, again, they were heavily weighted on coursework in those days as well, which I'd missed at the time.
Yeah.
The reason I got all of those is because I'd spent 15 hours a day studying. with no motivation, with no support, with no tutor. Obviously, my parents were great. They wanted me to do well, but I literally locked myself in my bedroom. And it was great in those days because we didn't have like these things to distract us. Okay. We didn't have TVs in our rooms, right? We had books. Okay.
Radio, if you were lucky, right?
Radio, if you were lucky. Yeah. And, I literally did 14, 15 hours a day study, and I came those exams. And I truly believe if I'd have been given the opportunity from the beginning, I would have got all A's and probably gone to Cambridge or Oxford. Now, not a problem because I wasn't meant to be there, got my own path. But I found this inner determination and grit from kind of being rejected from the conformity of fitting into school, that I found something truly powerful, which has served me the rest of my life.
Right. And what would you say that was, if you were to kind of distill it?
I think it was this determination that I hadn't had before, this kind of fight, this kind of like, you're not going to prove me wrong. I'm going to do whatever it takes, up and above and beyond what normal people will do. I'm going to do the work. I'm going to work so hard that I'm going to force the result to happen no matter what, and I'm coming back.
But I'm going to do it because I choose to do it.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay. I'm not going to. I think there's some of the reading I've done around this subject is really fascinating, because there are some teachers, when they're writing about what they think the difficulties of schooling is, the inherent difficulties, they say things like conditional self-esteem. Now, what that means is, I am putting my self-esteem in the hands of this random adult, who's going to tell me whether I'm a good person or not.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a kind of exaggeration of it, but essentially what happened in your situation is that you made the decision to decide, you made the decision to define yourself.
Yes.
Which is very, very powerful, particularly at that age. That must have been a real kind of self-defining moment, I would have thought.
Yeah, I think so. And I probably recognize it more now than I did back then. Back then, it was probably quite a childish sort of, I'm going to have the last laugh sort of thing.
Yeah.
But one thing, interestingly, as a teacher, I mean, you may appreciate this more than maybe many others, is in that intensive study alone, I learned something about myself. I love learning. I love studying. I love falling asleep tired, still thinking about the imprints of the books I've just been reading. And it gave me a lifelong passion for study, which has served me incredibly well. Incredibly well.
As a teacher, one of my big bugbears is that we don't teach children how to learn in schools. And you would have thought that would be the first thing that you normally teach a child to do. That's certainly the first thing that I do when I'm teaching. So if you don't give the child the tools to learn and learn in the way that they learn best, often, and you keep the learning in the hands of the teachers, I'm the one with the information and you have to come to me to get the information in the format that I'm going to deliver it. If that's all education is to you, then it's going to be very difficult to love it. The only way you can love it is to have the kind of experience that you had. I had a similar kind of experience, but later on as an undergraduate, where I finally found a book randomly in a bookshop that taught me how my brain worked. And suddenly the lights went on. I realized I was a visual learner. I had no idea. No one talked to me about learning styles. And the minute I learned I was a visual learner, I learned how to mind map. I started teaching people, I started teaching my friends. It revolutionized the way I thought about learning. And now I feel a similar way that you do. Okay. So thanks for that. That's very, very interesting, very enlightening. Were there any major kind of moments along your journey? Because I know you spent a long time in the sales environment. Were there any kind of major, the thing I'm thinking of, I don't want to put words into your mouth, but you have talked a lot about mentors. And one of the things that I'm starting to notice is the difference between teachers and mentors.
So I think mentors really, for me, and why I'm so obsessed about them, is they kind of fill that gap of those early role models outside of your immediate family. Okay. And I think for me, a great changing point in my life was when I ended up on the sales floors. and I met this incredible gentleman we called him Tony the Lebanese. He was a very, very well-connected businessman in London who kind of took me under his wings as a young sort of 22, 23-year-old and really schooled me in, business, selling, deal brokerage, and a whole lot more, okay? And I think when that happened, for me, that really took on a next sort of level of learning. And probably found that early mentor that I'd wanted, at school, really, that wasn't there. Okay. So, yeah.
So what I find interesting is we've just been talking about the idea of teachers somehow having the ability to convey or confer self-esteem on people, on students, and access to all the information. You have to go to them. I think the relationship maybe with a mentor is more of a personal one, and perhaps there's more intrinsic learning going on. They're not necessarily sitting down giving you classes, but you're learning by the way they are in the world in some ways.
Yeah, I think the idea of a mentor is to kind of tap into their experience, okay? A mentor is obviously somebody that's got results that you want, okay, that's willing to share their experience and guide you and direct you based on their experience. And I think, like you say, it's not intrinsic learning, but it's essentially, it's drawing from their wealth of wisdom and getting that guidance, but also getting the contacts and getting the kind of confidence that somebody who's already where you want to be has belief in you. The biggest lesson for me was that when my mentor looked me in the eyes and he said, "You're one of the greats." And I thought, is there someone behind me? Like, who are you talking to? You had a few too many, and he was talking to me. And you could feel it and it was real. And I guess if I could go back and give some advice to those teachers, who I don't think they were bad people. I just think they were in an era where it was very black and white, and they were in an era where they were totally institutionalized, and it was all about control, control, control. And I'm very entrepreneurial, and I think a lot of us that are in the entrepreneurial space, we're creative beings. We want to kind of do our own thing, okay? Yeah. And so we sometimes struggle in school, okay? And if I could go back now and give those guys, some of them wouldn't be alive, of course, but if I could go back now and give them some advice, I would just say, look, believe in people, whoever they are. Give them something that they can believe in themselves, because you look with care in their eyes and say, hey, I believe in you. You might be hopeless at maths right now, according to your own merits, but I believe you can do this. And that will give somebody so much for their life that as a teacher, they'll become ultimately really, really fulfilled. So that's kind of the advice I'd give.
The other key word you came up with was creativity. And I know that particularly as someone who is in business, one of the things I found the most interesting about your approach is that you put creativity at the center of business. And again, someone who works in education, who's worked in the creative arts, we often feel that creativity is given a very hard deal. It's constantly being reduced. It's constantly being talked down. I can't tell you the number of times I've spoken to parents who said to me, if I was teaching their child drama, it doesn't really matter, does it? What would you say to those people?
You know what? It's interesting you say that, because when I went to school, obviously, my parents, my society had given me a certain model of the world, right? So when I went to school, I was very much told that the important subjects, okay, are science. And in those days, it wasn't even science. It was like physics, biology, chemistry, mathematics, and obviously English lit, okay? These were the important subjects. Anything else, it's a bonus. Learn German, that's really cool. But your art, your RE, your drama, your home economics or whatever they used to call it, they're like they're just time fillers, okay? And that was really my viewpoint, okay? And if I had a time travel machine and I could go back, and I probably would, because we'd pick up some Bitcoin pretty cheap on the way, but I probably would go back, okay? I would really involve myself in music and drama. I'd really focus more. And that's exactly the opposite of what I would have said at 11, 12, 16, or even probably 30. Okay. Right. I would really go heavily back into drama, music, and English lit. I think there's so much gold in the classics. I don't have time to read them. That's probably a bit of a limiting belief and an excuse, right? But right now, I don't have time to read all the classics. I go back, read all those wonderful pieces of literature. And I think there's so much in there for business. I really do. I think there's so much in there for business. I'd go back and major on those things more than anything.
I'm sort of conscious that there's so many things that we could talk about. There was one thing I wanted to talk about a little bit, just to develop your story a little bit. So one of the things that you did was to find mentors who worked for you, and we realised that the relationship between mentors differs from your relationship with teachers. But I was actually listening to the live you did this morning, and you were talking about your own educational process. You were talking about the amount of time and money you invested in it. So do you want to talk a little bit about that? Why you think it's important to invest in your own education or create your own education?
Yeah, absolutely. Because I think at the end of the day, okay, we are evolving as human beings. Okay, if you look at the history of humanity, we're evolving. Okay, whether you're an evolutionist or creationist, doesn't really matter. In the short span, we're evolving. Okay, we're evolving. We're speaking today virtually. You're in London, I'm in Bedfordshire. We're speaking virtually. 20, 30 years ago, we couldn't have made this call like this. We'd have had to meet, we'd had to have a studio, etc., etc., etc. We're evolving as a species, as a group of people, okay? And so you've got to invest, and that involvement's got a curve that at the moment's just going up and up and up because of all the developments in technology and artificial intelligence, etc., etc., etc. The economy is changing radically as well. And so you have to invest in yourself to A, get an edge on everyone else, okay? But to B, understand not only the bigger picture, but to understand yourself, because in 2018, we are very, very complex beings. We're very, very complex beings. And so, I thoroughly believe in that. I also think if you want to get to the top of whatever field you're in, you've got to put in the work, and you've got to seek out the best teachers on the planet. You've got to seek out the best resources on the planet, and you've got to put your money where your mouth is and your time on the table. Everybody wants the result, but not everybody wants to do the work for that result. And I think going back to my GCSEs, I put in the work. I put in the work to the point where I wasn't even sleeping for like months. I was doing 14, 15 hours a day study. Nobody really does that, okay? And here's the thing. I didn't care if I passed the exams or not. I just knew I'd done the work, and I knew my stuff. I knew those books inside out, Rob. I could even repeat them verbatim, okay? So I went into that exam. I didn't care if I passed. I'd done the work. It's the work that really counts, okay? Because if you keep doing the work, one day you'll get the result. And that's why I believe in investing in yourself, because you get that fast track. And on the sales floors, you're commission only. You are only as good as your next sale or your next month or your next client, okay? So you have to consistently get that edge. And so, for me, those early days, it was all about investing in myself. And now it's really paying off. And guess what? I'm still investing in myself, because it's the best investment you're ever going to make, right?
I think just what struck me listening to you is that in many ways, one of the lies of schooling is that, we receive this education, and it's one of the only things that's free actually in our lives. Many people don't really value it for a number of different reasons, but at the end of the day, what it should lead us to is to our own self-education, to our own continual education, and that's really one of the keys. I want to try and fit in a little bit of advice actually, because I know that there are different groups of people, different age groups of people going to be listening to this and thinking about the ideas of unschooled and what their education has given them or otherwise. So I've interviewed people before and asked them for advice for, say, people leaving university or people leaving school. One of my previous guests, Julian Hall, who teaches entrepreneurship to kids, he said the best advice I could give someone is to start a business. Would you have any particular advice for younger people, maybe people who are leaving education?
Yeah, I would say the first thing is, understand that, you're an individual. You have specific qualities and skills, which belong to you, And your main role is to kind of don't worry too much about what you're going to become. More be concerned about what you want to do, and then find a route to do it that's going to pay you, going to give you the lifestyle you want, and really allow you to express yourself fully as an individual. Okay. The other thing I'd say to people, whatever age they are, is make sure you've got a few skills that no matter what, they will pay you for the rest of your life if you require to use them. So say for me, for example, right? One of my skills is sales. I could lose my business, the economy could go down, the internet could blow up, you name it, all these ridiculous things. I can get a job like tomorrow with a really good income because I know how to sell. I can also teach people how to sell. So that's a skill set that I can utilize for life. So it gives me security. No matter what's going on, no matter where I can go, I can create an income.
Right.
I also learned to trade, as you know, Rob. I learned to trade, back in the day. Again, I can always do that. Okay, I'm a good speaker and presenter. There's so many things. Again, I'm not blowing my own trumpet here, but what I'm saying to youngsters is try to develop skills and interests in some things. Okay, that will feed you for the rest of your life if you need them, because then you'll always have the freedom to be able to either create multiple income streams, okay, which are important, or you'll be able to do these things while you're progressing in your particular area of interest, which could be music, or it could be acting, or it could be whatever you want to do, which might take a while for you to actually get paid properly. Because what a lot of people do, they don't bother having any skill sets that are going to pay them money, so they spend all their life working for someone else, and they never forget to fulfill their dreams. So that's really just a bit of advice I give to young people and older people as well.
Yeah, I think it's very relevant. I mean, the other question I was going to have is for people who are either career changers, or I'm coming across a lot of people in their 40s and 50s who are being made redundant, for example, or wanting to change. And they don't have those saleable skills because they've been told that all you need is a job and there'll always be a job for you. Unfortunately, not always the case.
Yeah.
And a lot of the time, even if they do have skills, they're not even sure what those skills are.
Yeah.
Because they've been so connected within the job they do.
Yeah. I think, first of all, like anything in life, you've got to reach out and find people that are 2, 3, 4, 5 years ahead of you. So there's this kind of value chain, okay? It's perceived to some extent. There's this value chain. And you're always better learning from someone who's a few steps ahead of you. So if I was, just coming out of a career that I'd done for 25 years and I'm looking for a change and I haven't really got that clarity, I really want to be speaking to people that can help me get that clarity because they've been where I am a few years before and now they've come out the other side. So you've got to find people, mentors really, that have that experience. And you know what? It's 2018. It's really easy to connect with people these days. We've got all these fantastic tools like LinkedIn and Facebook groups and wonderful podcasts like what you're providing, Rob, as well, which allows us to connect with the right people. So it's really finding those people and people that you can connect with and say, hey, this is where I am. And you're going to have to be brutally honest. It might not always look pretty, okay? You're going to have to be coachable, okay? You're going to have to be open to maybe suggestions that are not things that you necessarily want to do. Because you've got to realize if you've come out of an institution for 25, 30 years, you're going to be aligned to a certain way of thinking, which is now changing for the new outcomes that you want to create. So that's what I'm really passionate about, all the mindset coaching we do. And I know you do a ton of coaching as well, Rob, as well, to help people in a situation. That's really the key. But it's really key that they find somebody who's had a similar experience and gone through it and come out the other side really complete and whole and starting to fulfill their life again.
Fantastic. Sort of thinking about wrapping up, I was going to ask you, I mean, you have kids yourself. What do you say to your kids about education?
Well, lots of different things really, okay? But what I do is I kind of, I try and instill a respect for the teachers, a respect for the organisation, the school, and I tie that in with a respect for their creator. So again, I know some people don't believe in a creator, but I do. So I always give the respect to the creator and then a respect for themselves. And I think that's really conducive to results. So my little daughter, who's 11, She's just gone to big school now. She's in secondary school. I'm still dropping her off in the morning. She'll start walking there on her own soon. And I always say to her, she leaves the car, I love you, darling. Remember this, okay? Respect God, okay? Respect yourself and your results. And as you walk in, remember you're wearing that school uniform. Respect your school because it's a fantastic organisation. And respect all your teachers. Even if you don't agree with them, respect them because they're your teachers, okay? And she's doing really well. I mean, she got into set 1 in maths and she's really enjoying it. And it's funny, she even said to me, Dad, could I just spend 10 minutes after school to go back to my primary school just to say hello to my teachers?
Wow.
And I said, yeah. So she's gone back to her primary school today and she's gone to say hello to her teachers and just tell them how she's doing. So I think that's really healthy. And I think if we can make school a home, it's a home where you're. I've just literally, I know we're wrapping up, Rob. I've just joined this really high-end gym in Bedfordshire. I'm really loving it. And my daughter comes with me. She's homeschooling. I'm homeschooling her. And take her along to the gym in the mornings. And I said to Lily, look, when you start a new gym or a new martial arts club or whatever else, the first month, you've just got to do 2 things. You've got to get into the habit of going and enjoying it. And you've got to make it feel like home. Because when you make it feel like home, you'll be in there every day. Okay. And I think that's really what I try and kind of give to the kids is make it feel like home. Make the teachers like people, like your relatives, like you really want to meet them. And I think that works really, really well.
Wow, how interesting. And it's so interesting that this kind of almost full circle from where we started.
Yeah. And maybe I wouldn't have that kind of, that belief if it wasn't for that experience. So I'm a great believer in utility. So in NLP, we call it utility, of using everything to progress forwards. Everything you give me, I'm going to use it to progress forwards. It's called utility. Great believer.
Wow. So Matt, thank you for that. That was amazing. If people want to get in contact with you, to do any coaching or anything else, what's the best way to contact you? Yeah,
best ways to reach out to me is literally social media. So Facebook, Matt WL Noronha, you can find me. I'm mutual friends with Rob, so you can connect with me that way. LinkedIn's a really good one. Again, Matt WL Noronha, very easy to find. I'm on Twitter. I don't do too much on Twitter, but I'm on there. I'm on Instagram. Again, not too much, but you can connect me on all of those medias.
Look for pineapples.
Lots of pineapples. You'll see the pineapples.
Look for pineapples. Yeah. Definitely.
Oh, yeah.
Right, Matt, I just want to thank you again. That was really, really enlightening. Thank you so much for coming on.
I appreciate you, Rob, and thank you for the invite. It's been a real pleasure, and I hope that someone gets impacted. We're here to serve, and if anybody needs my help, reach out. But also, Rob is somebody that I endorse. I endorse him. And I said to him the other day, I said, Rob, if I was going to pick a coach sometime, I'd pick you. Because I think you're absolutely wonderful, Rob. I think you're a great coach, great mentor, and a great impactor in the educational space. So thank you. It's been an honor.
Fantastic. Thanks, Matt. Thank you.